Hello, everybody. This is Alex, and I guess we're going to cover 6 days today as opposed to the five because it is Monday. Despite not having anything pop up over the weekend, I wasn't really feeling up to making this video. So I did have another active day in between the last recap and this one. And so the 6 days we're going to cover right now are these six right here. So while we're on the topic of recaps, I do want to address something that was bothering me for quite a while for this period right here that I covered in the last recap. And that was how my recap work, what I had to do was stacking up a lot. And that was bothering me throughout these days. As I was continuing to be active, I would think, oh, God damn it, now I'm deeper in the hole in the recaps. And it was over the weekend between this active day, day number 24, and day number 25. So I guess March 6th and 7th. It was during those 2 days that I decided, you know what? I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to let recaps go completely. We're going to switch to a weekly system. And then just like that, as I made that decision, a burden was lifted in a very big way. Knowing that I didn't have to, scramble to always make these projects every day after I'm done trading was a big deal. So even though I'm pretty disappointed that I broke the streak of daily recaps and that my journey throughout this account is going to have gaps in the covering of it, I really wanted to have entire coverage of being able to show every single step of this account. Even though that has been broken and I'm a little bit disappointed about that, I have to say that it's a positive change. I think the switch to weekly, I don't know how long it's going to last, but if it does work out, and so far it looks like it will, then I will stick to that. And there are a few reasons why this is so positive. One of the ones that was very much on my mind was my other projects. My other video projects that I had planned there was no progress happening on those. I did a bit early in January. I'd pull them out every now and then, but nothing actually got done. Nothing got posted. And I was kind of upset. Like, I haven't even covered my hotkeys, my discipline checklist, a couple behind the scenes things, what my lifestyle is like, etc. There is a lot of material that I would love to be getting out and that I think could be very helpful to any range of viewers. And the main reason that I haven't been making progress on any of those projects, and by the way, I just counted, there's 17 unfinished trading related projects currently in existence on this PC. And none of them have been posted since I started doing recaps. And one of the main reasons for that is because just the time it takes. I'm not I'm not apt at all in making videos, as you may have been able to tell. And so when I make these recaps, sometimes they blow up into 5 to 7 hour projects. So if I get done, let's say at 11 a.m., I'm not finished my recap until maybe 6 o'clock. And that's if I took zero breaks in between the time I started and then the time I finished. And so what this does to my day is it eliminates all the free time that I would have had later. And that pushes my workload later into the day. So sometimes I'm up until, 2 o'clock in the morning catching up on paperwork or whatever it is that I have to do. And meanwhile, all this other stuff that's really important gets pushed. And it's important to note, at least for me in my particular case, I've studied it extensively, and my findings over the last few years have shown that when I don't have fun, when I don't make room in my day to enjoy myself and do something that is purely, entertainment or something like that, example, playing guitar, going to the beach, going for a bike ride, something like that, if I don't have those activities in my day on a regular basis, then my performance on all fronts has a tendency to decline. And sometimes it actually blows up in a really big way. And so the decision I made was basically to sacrifice efficiency in covering this journey and not giving a recap every day and only giving one each week. I was sacrificing a little bit of that, but at the same time, I figured I have to do this. I'm at the point where I might have to reload soon. I might have to kick myself back into the simulator, and I absolutely don't want that to happen. Even though it's an acceptable path that I can take in my plan on this account, it's very much not the end of the world if I did do that. I really, really didn't want to do that. I wanted to just use the balance that I have right now. And that brings me into the next decision that I made over the weekend. So as I've mentioned quite a few times in past videos on this account, is that my plan coming in was to have a line in the sand, so to speak, at $2,000 of equity starting from my starting point up here at $2,758. So I gave myself about $750 of room to make mistakes before I would force myself into a decision that would, make some changes, some bigger changes as to how I'm running the account. And so that $2,000 level, once I got there, that's when it was full stop. Okay, now you're not allowed making any exceptions. Now I would have to, make a real decision as to whether or not I'm loading up very aggressively in this account, putting more money into it, or if I'm going to get aggressive with a small balance and run the risk of blowing up, which is far more likely with a small balance. And this decision was not one that I took lightly. I knew the impact of it was going to be very big. I knew that if I reloaded now and then continued to slide, then the feeling that I would get, like my emotions and the long term effect of being beaten down for now 2 months. I mean, it's a pretty long period of non progress. It's one of the longest I've suffered in recent times, at least. And I knew that would weigh down on me even more if I reloaded and then continued to have trouble. And ultimately, one of the things that guided my decision was the fact that I didn't actually cross 2,000. I was projected to open at $2,079.85 on March the 8th. And I figured, well, even if the exchange rate is brutal and my balance opens at, 2,040 or something, that's still $40 of room that I can use to try and build it back up and try to avoid this point in my plan where I am going to be forced to make a decision. And another thing that I was pretty focused on that I feel might have tipped the scales was these 2 days right here. These are effectively the reason why I got down that low. And these are 2 days where I did two things that deeply impacted my balance and my results in a way that was non-standard. The first and foremost is that I wasn't trading from home. I was trading in a situation that was not particularly comfortable and where I didn't have a lot of familiarity with my surroundings. And that does make a pretty big difference on, my performance overall, how alert I am, whether or not there's something going on in the background, etc. And the other thing is that, as I mentioned in the last recap, I did get pretty aggressive on this trade, this one trade that I took on March 2nd, on day number 24. I stepped up the share size pretty big. And I took a lot of risk. I saw a spot where I could potentially make $400 on a trade. And I took about, $200 worth of risk to take that trade. And the result I ended up closing with was pretty close to the max loss. So this was a situation that was unusual. It wasn't like, for instance, this train wreck up here where I had 8 trades and 6 of them were 6 losers in a row to close the day. It wasn't one of those situations where I was continually piling up losers. It was I took one stab, the stab didn't work out, and I decided to just back off from there. If the stab had worked, well, then we'd be having a different conversation right now. But the stab didn't work, and I figured it wasn't a reasonable adjustment to consider that stab to be the loser that makes me reload. Now, there was actually another pretty major consideration about whether or not I wanted to reload at that time with the balance coming into Monday of 2075. There was one more thing that was really playing heavily on my mind to do with how I manage the account. However, I'm not going to go through that one in this recap now, because even though there are some parallels and comparisons I could use with the stock market to help you understand, I feel that I haven't described the structure of this account thoroughly enough for you to be able to understand the strategy, the implications of the strategy choices that I was making. So we're just going to drop that part of the story for now, and I'm going to move on and go through the trades and the days that make up this 6-day sample. So we're switched over to my trade log right now, lined up to the beginning of March the 8th. These are the 3 trades from March the 8th. You can see I took 3 on eyes. They all went fairly well, and I built it a little bit back up, had a good day. The next day was pretty much a repeat of March 8th. It was very similar. 3 trades, 3 winners, small winners, just building it slowly, building it safely. And I won't get into it, but I will mention that these 2 trades on ANPC gave me a lot of confidence in the way that I planned them. I'll get to why that is later. And then I followed it up with a really bad day on March the 10th, right here. These are the 10 trades from March the 10th. And you can see that my accuracy is only 3 out of 10. And if I bring up the daily results again, you'll see that this is the result from 30% accuracy. I'm in the green by 25 bucks, and my net P&L, even with those 7 losers, is only a couple of bucks into the negatives. So basically, this day I think is one of the most important in this week because it showed me that I can make a ton of mistakes and still get away with not that much damage, which I wasn't really being successful at with the style that I'd been trying leading up to now. And I will point out too that I was in the green, I think by like 40 bucks or something. And I thought I should probably close it down. I should probably give up. It's good enough, whatever. I'll take the small amount of green I had today and come back tomorrow and see what I could do. But then I didn't do that. I came back in the afternoon, as you can see by the times on these last two trades. These are starting at 142, ending at 222. And I took 2 more losers to delete the profit, the small bit of profit that I had at that point in the day. And I put myself in the red. And at first I was kind of bummed, but since then I've decided that this day might have actually been pretty important because it's a red day and it's a tiny red day. 30% accuracy and I'm only down $2. So there were a lot of positives that I pulled out of this day, and I feel like I kind of parlayed that into some confidence coming into the next two. So March the 11th was very much like the 10th, only the accuracy was better in that I was very active. Once again, I took more than 10 trades. On this day, I took 11, and I was green on 7 of them. And you can see I ended the day on a positive note too, which was pretty good. I didn't try to push the limit. I saw that my results were getting diminished. The returns that I was getting smaller. The moves were not quite as clean. And I decided, you know what, instead of trying to push it and trying to look for the next thing, let's just take this and just be done and accept this. And I gotta say, like as a passing note, that's one of the things that I really kind of focused on is being satisfied a lot more quickly. Normally, I view 100% accuracy on a day with a lot of trades as a bad thing because to me it means that I didn't try hard enough. If I have 10 winners in a row and then I quit, it's I didn't try hard enough versus if I have 10 winners in a row and then I book 1 loser. It feels to me like there needs to be that loser at the end in order to signify that okay, the fun is over, the party's done, and it's time to go home. But in this case, especially recently with the overall position that I'm in, that isn't the case. I feel like finishing on a green note is actually pretty good. I'd rather not give it back. If I do give it back, I want it to be in the middle of the day rather than the end of the day. So on that one, that was the 11th of March. I finished up with a bit more than 3%, and I was perfectly okay with that. I did trade pretty actively here, and my commissions were higher than they should have been. However, I do not care about that. That's one of the changes I made that I forgot to mention. We'll get to that at the end. Moving on here on to March the 12th. So the 12th was a Friday, and I didn't really have a lot of confidence coming into it. I did catch a little piece of ENTX, leftover momentum from the day before. I then took a really stupid loser, in my opinion, on Seal. That trade was never in a good position. And even though it was only a $13 loser, it really bothered me. And so did the one on Aveo, actually. These 2 losers right here, I wouldn't say they really bothered me, but I was kind of, upon closing them, I thought to myself, like, what was the point of that exactly? Where was the upside? And unlike other losers that I'd suffered in earlier in the week, I looked at these and I thought those were stupid trades. You shouldn't have done that. And I smartened up a little bit and I looked for, better things. And the thing that I found turned out to be orders of magnitude better than I actually knew about at the time. You can see here I got involved with 5 trades on NLSP, which made a fantastic move in a period of, I think, maybe 10 minutes. It went from $3 to mid 6 something. And sadly, I got victimized by my shitty news feed. So I don't have a good source of news. And when I went to look up the news at, I think, like 8:02, when I saw it moving originally, I didn't see anything. And I thought, okay, that's weird. I guess I'll treat this as a scalp. But at the same time, the price action to me screamed like super positive phase 3 results or some kind of big ticket news like FDA approval of a drug or something like that. It felt to me the way that it was moving like a really big one, a really big news item. But because I couldn't find the news, I couldn't verify that yes, there was a catalyst, I had to treat it with caution. And so you can see I took 100 shares at 372, scalped them 13 seconds later, making 36 cents gross. 9% winner. Was really happy about that at the time that I exited. But then just a few moments later, finally, my news source did post, yes, there was 8 a.m. news, and it was indeed very positive. And by that time, the price had already, skyrocketed up to $6. And the reason this is tragic is because if I had known at the time that I took my first entry that there was that news, I would have been adding, $4, $4.50, possibly even $5 before I started to sell. And even, that might even be expecting too much. Maybe I wouldn't have done that. But regardless of any habits of mine, this winner would have been a lot bigger had I known that news was there. And because I didn't, I ended up kind of FOMOing my way into a couple of trades here, even though these aren't necessarily FOMO trades. They are obviously way higher up in price. And they do show that maybe I was potentially trying to revenge trade them a little bit. I held this one for 11 minutes and 31 seconds, not getting a ton of resolution. Both these trades, by the way, were green. One of them, the first one, wasn't very substantially green. That didn't last long. However, this one was. I did have the option of closing this one green, and I didn't. And then later on, I ended up taking two more trades. The last one's important here at right at the bell. I took a 50 share starter, and I didn't like it. I realized there was resistance up top, and I thought that resistance would hold. And so what I tried to do was sell my entire position at 650, which is only up 15 cents. What I did instead was hit the add half button, which is Control W for me. And so instead of selling my position, I added to it. And that ended up working out okay. It dipped down for a minute, and once I found an exit at 663, I took it for the whole position, and I exited that cleanly, and I didn't get burned. However, that behavior is dangerous, and I felt, okay, I've been up pretty, I got up pretty early today. I think I was at my desk at like 6:30, which I've been doing a lot lately. And, maybe I'm starting to get tired. I am feeling a little loopy. I'm not 100%. I think that mistake is not acceptable. And so I decided to close it up for the day as a result of that mistake. Even though there was some other things moving, there was an ENTX rip, which turned out to be pretty nice. ENTX halted up, I think, 3 times. And I saw it very early. I ended up calling it out, and there was just an amazing run. I didn't end up touching it because I figured if I'm this sloppy on NLSP earlier, well then what reason do I have to expect myself to be sharp when there's something moving a heck of a lot faster, which ENTX definitely was. It was a, halt ripper that was only unhalted for, I don't know, maybe 20 to 45 seconds, and then it would halt again. And, with those kinds of moves, when it's moving really fast, I like to either A, have a really big cushion on the day, or B, be at the top of my game mentally. And I was neither of those things at that time, and so I decided to leave ENTX alone. And so with that result on Friday, with the last trade on NLSP, I closed the week for the first time in this account with 5 gross winners, not net winners, but still green all around on the gross side. And that wouldn't normally be a big deal if, I had done that. I did do that several times in, let's say, the summer of 2020. That wasn't even a noteworthy thing for me. But at this time, in this situation, this is actually a really good boost. It's the data that I need to support the ideas that I'm having. The ideas that I'm having being, I want to get more aggressive, but I need to have the data. And so I'm going to give a quick rundown here of this last day today, which was March 15th, where, again, I finished with about a 3% winner. 3 trades, 100%. It's pretty close to these 2 results right here, basically carbon copies of each other. And I'm actually going to bring up my broker for this one. So my 3 trades from March 15th, which is today, they were all on SGLB, which is one of 4 main watches that I had pre-market. And you can see my first entry was down here. Well, maybe you can't see it, but it's right here on this candle at $5.50, preempting the break of what I believe was 560, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 560, there was a little bit of a pivot from pre-market, which I was looking at, and I got long with the intention of adding. However, I did get kind of surprised by the halt level on this one. It was buried down in my level 2, and I didn't quite see it at the time of my entry. I was expecting it to be closer to around $6. It turned out to be $5.82 is where it halted. So I took 50 shares into this halt, and my intention was to add on a strong resumption. And during the halt, I was watching it the whole time. The price gapped up very consistently from flat at 584 or something all the way up to 610. And yeah, I guess 610 is where it actually opened. And following a dip, it came back up, and that's when I added a half position at 625 on this candle right here. Now, as you can see, we entered a period of consolidation. There was a false breakout right here, but there were also some bottoming tails. And even though I wanted to add more at this time, I thought, no, I don't want to let this trade go red. By this point in the trade, I had reset my stop to break even, which at once I added was 575. And you can see we were flirting with that level quite a bit. And I didn't want to add more and then get stopped out. I did want to make sure this was a green trade, and so I decided to just give it a moment and not add any further. What I ended up doing was taking a piece off right here on this candle at 634 when I saw a lot of resistance around 640. We finally got through that resistance a few minutes later, and I took the second piece off at 653 to close the trade. And then, long story short, I did it again. I don't need to really go through these. You can see the arrows, maybe you can't. But anyway, there's an entry here, an exit here. That was this trade. Yeah, sorry. There was an entry here, sold half up at 726 when I saw some resistance I didn't like. I let it try again. I thought it was going to break through here. There was a double bottom at 692, broke through, didn't work. Huge long body coming down, and that's when I stopped out of the second half at 689. I then waited for consolidation and once again took yet another entry looking for a break of the high of day, which at that time was 740. I didn't like what I saw when it got up there, and I just ditched the position at 729. So those three trades combined to give me this result right here, and we're now 100% up to date. Now, without going into like a 40-minute analysis of it, I'm going to try to cover how I feel about the state of the account right now, how I feel about my performance within it, and stuff of that nature. And so the way I'm going to illustrate that is by talking about some of the stats that have been accumulating now, as there are a reasonable number of active days. We're now at active day number 30, and my total trades is now 147 in this account, which is a pretty good sample size. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the pattern in my commissions per share. So if you look right here in my stats at the top, there's the average commissions per share, and I will highlight that so you can keep an eye. Keep your eye on right here, and right now what we're looking at is the month of January. All my trades for January isolated. I'm going to switch through the other months, and you just keep your eye right here looking at commissions per share. So this is January, this is February, and this is March. Now what you'll notice is they have gone up, going back once again, January, February, March. And those commissions are going up, and even back in January, they were already very high. This 2 cents per share, that's about 6 times the minimum that I need to be paying. So that's pretty hefty. And now it's getting heavier. And now we're going to take a look at another stat, which is the one that I've been eyeballing the most so far. And that's gross P&L. So once again, we're going to go back to January. Gross P&L is over here on the left. For January, it was negative 143.63. So keep your eye right here on gross P&L, and I'm going to cycle through this is January, this is February, and this is March. So the pattern is pretty clear. We go from negative 140 in January, negative $3 in March, or in February rather, and then plus 236 in March. Now there's a pretty clear pattern of ascending profit there. It's getting better. There's no question. In February, I did have that same thing, that same pattern lined up, but I destroyed it with those couple of bad days at the end of the month. But the reason that I'm paying such close attention to this, the gross P&L, even though I talk mostly about the net P&L, the reason I'm talking so much about the gross is because that's what I need to pay attention to know whether or not it's time for me to step up the share size. To know whether or not it's time for me to get very aggressive, the gross P&L and the commissions per share are two of the most important stats. Now, even though have only been 6 days so far since I made those significant changes to my approach and my attitude, I do think that this change in performance has largely been due to me just not caring about the impact of commissions anymore. I realized one of the many things that I realized I was doing, or took a look at anyway, in recent weeks, is that I'm really stressing too much about the impact of commissions and what they're doing to my account. Because I see the balance going down, but I haven't been really paying attention to the gross P&L, and now I am. And I think that's really a big deal. And the reason that I realized that was so important is I took a look at previous accounts and like lifetime, like all of my accounts. And the one that stood out, the one that I realized, oh yeah, this is the same stupid thing that I did back then, it's TFG01, was the second live account that I ever had, and which is one of the ones which is combining to make what you're seeing here. So in TFG01, I had very much the same situation. I funded the account with a total of around 5,100 USD, and at the time that I halted it, in late in 2019, it had $1,772, which is obviously a big loss. That's more than 60% down. But what I may not have mentioned so far, I'm not 100% sure, is that that account was actually up. It was gross winner, but down more than 60% due to account fees and commissions and whatever else. And one of the reasons that I struggled so badly with that account is because I was obsessing a lot over the impact of commissions. Rather than understand that the impact of commissions will be diminished when my share size goes up, I just kind of like panicked about how much was getting cut in, and I would try too hard. I would try too hard to book bigger and bigger winners. And I feel that that's probably not exactly the same, but there are quite a few similarities between that account and how I've been managing this one in the early months anyway, in the first 2 months. And I think that a lot of these big red days are my bad reaction, my emotional reaction to being annoyed at the impact of commissions. And so over this weekend before March the 8th, I said, okay, I don't care anymore. I don't care if I have $100 in gross P&L and I finish the day down $20. I don't care. If that's what's going to happen, fine. But I'm just going to focus on, the trade itself and just doing the right thing. Be in the moment more. I felt that was really one of the mistakes that I had been doing pretty consistently in this account so far. And, in trading, like a lot of things, but especially trading, it's very much like it doesn't matter what you did in the past. I had a great 2020, and before that I had a few triumphs as well. And in other areas of life, things were good. But it's easy to forget that. It's easy to forget, like, yeah, I'm the guy who did that. I'm the guy who turned $1,500 into 45,000 in a matter of 3 months. I'm still that guy, but you forget that. And I feel that I really did forget that so far. And so my big sort of meditation session that I had on the 6th and the 7th of this month was focused on stuff like that. And looking at these stats and realizing that, oh yeah, the only thing that's missing here is share size increase. And the only thing that's missing for me to be confident in increasing share size is going to be getting more of the stats that I've built up recently. So getting more of this. Let me switch back to the full thing. So getting more of this is what I want to see. More of the safe results, more of the small results, and not really caring about making $100 and having $32 dig into my profit and give me only 75. That doesn't really matter to me. So in my head right now, even though this one, day number 27, could be looked at as like a bad day where I made a lot of mistakes and I traded very sloppily, I'm also looking at it as the third out of 6 consecutive green days because I'm focused largely on gross right now. And the last thing I'll say in this video to illustrate this point is we're going to switch back over to my trade log, go to the all. So this is showing every trade in the account so far. And we're going to see that, I'll zoom in a bit here so you can get a better look. The average commissions per share overall in this entire account so far out of 147 trades is 3.26 cents per share. So what we're going to do is compare that to the minimum cost of commissions with Interactive Brokers, which is 0.35 cents. So the way we're going to do this is 326 divided by 35. And what we'll find is that I'm paying 9.3 times the minimum that I would need in order to trade with the software and the broker that I'm trading with right now. So if we take a look at my overall commissions of $425.80 and we divide that by 9.3, we're going to find that my commissions, had I been trading with max size, or at least size that gives me that minimum commissions, those $425 in commissions would be the equivalent of $45.78. So, having said all this, to recap the recap, basically the spot I'm in right now is that there was a long period of turbulence, possibly one of the longest anyway. It feels like the longest to start this account, and right now it feels very reminiscent of the type of stats turnaround that I felt when I turned around other accounts, when I went from red to green in other accounts. Now, I'm not at all going to be excited yet. I definitely need more data. I want to see a bigger sample size of me performing the way I did last week. I want to see that continue. And more than anything, I want to see how I manage a situation where I get caught in a really bad spot. I want to see myself not have a huge red day when I get caught in a rug pull, when I get caught in a downward halt, or whatever happens that's bad. I want to see myself have more of these days, more days like this where, yeah, I messed it up. I did a lot of things wrong, but I didn't really get smoked on terms of, P&L. So going forward, looking for consistency as I have been producing, and looking for the trigger. I definitely want to see the stats line up in a way that encourages me to step up the size. And if I were to make a prediction right now, I'd say I probably need about 2 more weeks of performance of this type before I really start to get into the bigger size and take off. Because the thing that I have the most in my head right now is that I can just crush souls once I click. Once I'm in the zone, I know how it goes. Like it again, like I said, it's easy to forget what you did last year, last month, or whatever, even last week in some cases. But in this case, I'm really keeping in mind that, yeah, once I clicked in other accounts, I took off and I went from, let's say, like 2,000 to 20, which is by far the hardest part of these types of challenges. Once you get past that initial bump, that initial resistance, it's like life is easy past that point. So right now, I'm trying to avoid any kind of hiccups that'll slow down my ascension towards that point, and to maintain the consistency that I've had to my credit last week, and so far at least this week on Monday that I've continued. So that's the game plan. That's what I feel, and I hope you guys don't mind too much if you're a casual viewer that I made this switch out of nowhere. Others, I know you get to talk to me daily. You're hearing about this stuff in advance. And if you want more detail, let me know. Whether it's email or whatever else, give me a call if you're somebody who has my number. And let me know what you want to see. If there's something like there's a lot of you out there that are trying to become profitable at all for the first time, and I've been through this struggle many, many times. So if this switch to weekly recaps doesn't do it for you, please let me know. Especially if you're involved with freedom trading, if you're looking to trade with our money, if you're trying to get to that level, let me know, because I will be happy. Now that I have maybe a bit more free time, it's going to be a lot less daunting of a task for me to make a supporting video, a little 5 minutes short about, answering a question or something like that. But anyway, this one's long enough. So for now, this is going to be Alex saying goodbye for the week, and I will see you on the weekend, hopefully with more good news to report.